got a really sharp pain in my chest all of a sudden on the right side. So that's kind of alarming. I don't know if I'm having a relapse with more pneumonia or what, but it's seriously pretty bad.
Dinner. Marinara, pasta, some veggies, some bread, ginger ale. Living a life of luxury.
Alright, I got my poles, jacket, headlamp. You know what, I think I'll take a couple more. Maybe a couple more liquid calories too. That's a good point. Yeah. I'll probably start at like 4:45, so I'm gonna be running with the headlamp. It's good practice. I'm Sage Canaday, and I'm a mountain ultra trail runner and coach based in Salida, Colorado. I started running when I was pretty young. I was always active as a child running around the backwoods of Oregon, but I officially started competitive distance running when I was 12 years old. I went out for middle school track. Basically, my soccer coach said I was better off without a ball. So when I was 12, I joined the track team, was running like the 100-meter hurdles, the 1,500 meters. I wasn't great initially, but I liked the idea that if I worked hard, I could improve a lot. And by the time I was in 7th grade, I was super serious. I was training year-round. I'd quit playing soccer. But it was really in college when I qualified for my first Olympic trials that kind of solidified in my brain that maybe I could keep running at like a professional level. One of the things I'm most proud of early on in my career was in college, I won Ivy League conference title running a 10K. I was always better at cross country, so running on a flat track was kind of a surprise, but the team needed the points and I had a really good race that day. I ran under 30 minutes for 10 kilometers on the track. The other thing I'm really proud of is my college coach let me run road marathons, and I ended up qualifying for my first US Olympic marathon trials. And I was the youngest guy at the US Olympic trials in 2007, so it was kind of a career highlight and a lifelong goal and dream of mine. After college, I was running professionally on the roads, just doing like half marathons and marathons. And I did that for 3 years, had some moderate success. Like I ran in the 2012 US Olympic trials, but I was a little disheartened after that because I didn't run a personal best. Just kind of getting stale and burnt out from running on the pavement, the same distance through similar flat courses. And when I looked back on my running career, I realized that I was always better at cross country. I was always better on courses that were hilly. So in 2012, after the Olympic trials, I thought maybe I should just try these longer distance races. I saw some magazine articles about mountain ultra marathons, and it just seemed like a really efficient way to challenge yourself, but also be competitive doing longer than marathon races. I just decided I'd go full-time into mountain ultra trail running in 2012, and it kind of coincided with my move to Boulder, Colorado, and training at altitude. And once I got out on the trails, it felt like home. The first ultramarathon I ran was in March of 2012, and it was the Chuckanut 50K in Bellingham, Washington. I ended up getting lost on the course, ran an extra mile, and then at the very end I fell and I cut my knee open so bad that I had to have stitches on the finish line. But I was hooked because I still finished second place and had a blast, really enjoyed the community, and it was a really muddy, snowy race and just like the full introduction to ultra running right there. So there's extra challenges in these long distance races, and I kind of learned that in my first ultra. So just mentally breaking down the distance into smaller, manageable bits and kind of accepting going into the race that you're gonna be in the pain cave for a long time. Things are gonna go wrong, but you just try to problem solve and have a plan, and then just accept that your legs are gonna be getting really tired, you might cramp up. So you have to be really smart with your pacing and kind of study the course, but you have to improvise too. You have to be able to adapt to the changing conditions. You're racing your other competitors, but you're also kind of playing mind games with yourself and trying to get the best out of yourself. And so just staying disciplined, staying motivated, and remembering all the hard workouts that have got you to where you could run fast and finish strong become really important.
It's covered in slush, mud, and ice. The rocks were, and you're like jumping electric fences for the sheep, and it's crazy. It's super technical. Big descent. Now I got a big climb. Okay. Up and over to the Accompany.
You feeling good, Sage?
As good as I can be. It's slushy, muddy up there, and hip flexors getting stiff, but yeah, it's breathing's getting tough too, so it's gotta control that pain.
So up until about 2021, I was really lucky that I didn't have any major setbacks in my life. I had very fortunate to have supportive parents, good health. I didn't get any running injuries. I've never broken any bones. So I really hadn't faced any serious adversity in life until 2021, when I suddenly got sick with a life-threatening pulmonary embolism, which is substantial blood clots in both of my lungs. And it kind of happened suddenly. I bounced around between different doctors. They initially thought it might be pneumonia, which was a misdiagnosis, and I kind of suffered through some pretty significant pain for about 5 weeks while my lung tissue was getting deprived of blood, and it started just killing some of the lung tissue. I actually have permanent damage and scar tissue in my lungs from that, but it was also kind of excruciating pain for 5 weeks there. But eventually I went to the hospital, I went to the emergency room, and they were able to diagnose it with a contrast CT scan. And they quickly put me on blood thinners, racking up a lot of medical bills. So it was kind of scary, but it was also a relief because they said it was life-threatening. And if I wasn't an athlete, if I wasn't a runner, if I hadn't been eating healthy, this type of thing could have possibly killed me. So I'm grateful for that. But it was a real struggle, and it's kind of been a struggle since then because my breathing hasn't returned to normal. Even though the blood thinners were effective and I got rid of the clots, it's been kind of a long process of getting more medical tests done, getting a lot of scans on my heart, ultrasounds, trying to find out why my breathing is still kind of labored. But there's a lot of unknowns with what kind of damage it causes exactly and why it's hard to breathe. So that's been one of the biggest struggles of my life so far, and something that brought a lot of pain and suffering to some degree. And I was on blood thinners for about 3 months over the summer of 2021, and things were slowly starting to kind of get back to normal in my life. But then all of a sudden, one night, we suddenly realized from the pictures on the news that it was our home that had caught on fire. And it was kind of a devastating fire where everything was a total loss, basically. It doesn't look as bad from this side, but you could tell like the whole roof collapsed, basically, because the fire kind of spread through the roof rafters too. But it basically demolished the whole building because the structural integrity of it was just basically gone. Like it just collapsed in. We were lucky we weren't there because it would have been scary to kind of run through this. This was our only exit besides the balcony climbing rope I had attached. Some people had to jump from the second and third story, but everyone survived and no one got critically hurt, so it's pretty lucky. 83 apartments, downtown Boulder, just totally gone. A few things I have that didn't burn up in the fire. It's kind of one of the proud moments of my running career. When I first qualified for my first Olympic trials marathon, and I was able to save it because it was in storage, so it didn't get engulfed in flames. The fire was spreading really fast. It was in the middle of the night. All our personal items and belongings and race trophies and gear was in this little 400 square foot apartment in downtown Boulder. It was kind of a shock to the system, and it was also kind of extra salt in the wounds, so to speak. I was still recovering from my pulmonary embolism and racking up a lot of hospital bills, and now we're worried about insurance for our condo that burned down. The thing that really hurt was probably losing a lot of irreplaceable personal mementos that had sentimental value, because you just can't replace that. In ultramarathons, you have to break down a lot of problem solving and facing a lot of suffering and usually more physical pain, whereas in these life challenges, I was facing physical pain from the pulmonary embolism, but it was more of a mental strain and emotional loss and pain when our condo burned down. But you kind of have to go to the same place in your mind where you just break things down, have yourself a step plan, and try to cope, just take things one day at a time. Because if you think of the total loss all at once, it's kind of overwhelming. So the lessons I've learned from running definitely helped me cope and overcome the pulmonary embolism as well as the fire, because you're struggling, you're hurting, but if you put things in perspective, you realize that sometimes you could even come out stronger and that you could persevere and overcome these things even though they seem really devastating at the time. It's like when you're in a dark place in an ultramarathon race and you could pull yourself out of it and sometimes feel better as the race goes on. So it's kind of a metaphor for life with the ups and downs that you have to face.